plug-in hybrids seemingly offer the best of both worlds of gas and electric for people that aren't ready to fully embrace the electric vehicle life. But honestly, there haven't been that many good ones on the mainstream or luxury ends that I've personally recommended. Now, Mercedes has dipped their toe in finally in the US market with this, the 2024 GLE 450e plug-in hybrid. Is this the ultimate stopgap between gas and electricity? Let's find out. Before we jump right in, I want to give a quick background on what this car is. The GLE is the mid-sized Mercedes SUV. It competes against things like the BMW X5. You may remember this as the Mercedes ML if you haven't shopped for a luxury car in a while. The 2024 GLE is a facelifted model, so we have some updates under the hood. We've got some fresh styling, not too many changes on the inside, but it is worth talking about this plug-in hybrid drivetrain. So let's go ahead and get this GLE out on the road. So let's jump out on the road first in the 2024 Mercedes GLE 450e. That is the plug-in hybrid version of this mid-size Mercedes SUV, and this is actually the first time that we've been able to get a plug-in hybrid version of this GLE in the United States. So I'm very interested to drive this car because this is actually the first Mercedes plug-in hybrid that I've driven as well. You can also get the S-Class as a plug-in hybrid as well, which is a concept that I am very fascinated in. So here's the setup of this plug-in hybrid GLE. We've got a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine under the hood. It's actually the same engine that you would get in the base like GLE 300, you know, the base level one. We've got 248 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. So not overly insane numbers from just the engine alone, but we also have an electric motor, and that contributes an additional 134 horsepower and 325 horsepower. So when you combine the engine and the electric motor, we've got a total of 381 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. So that is actually more powerful than the GLE 450, which uses a turbocharged inline 6. That model only produces 375 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So you get more power and more torque from this plug-in hybrid 4-cylinder GLE. Now, even though the plug-in hybrid GLE is more powerful than the inline 6, it is not quicker. 5.8 seconds to 60 versus about a half a second quicker if you get the 450. That's because only a 4-cylinder engine, the motor and the engine don't really work in tandem perfectly 100% of the time, and it's heavier because we've got a big battery on this car. So I'm going to briefly show you the acceleration. Right now I am in electric only mode, so let's see what it feels like when just the electric motor launches this car forward, okay? Flooring it. Okay, brisk acceleration. And as long as you don't go too deep into the pedal, it'll stick with just the electric motor. It will not kick on the gas motor. I know that a lot of plug-in hybrids, if you just demand too much power for too long, it will kick on the engine. But in this case, the GLE did not. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is put it into sport mode. That's gonna kick on the engine. So now the engine and the electric motor are firing at the same time, trying to give me max output, the 381 horsepower, 479 pound-feet, which is really nice. So let's see now what it feels like. Ready? There we go. Woohoo! Very smooth shifts from the 9-speed automatic transmission. I really like this transmission, and what I really love is that this engine is not too loud. It's not too intrusive. That is something that I have found in a lot of plug-in hybrid mainstream vehicles. I just drove the Mazda CX-90, and while it was great when it was running on electric power alone, I thought that when the engine kicked on, it was a little bit disruptive. With this, they've pumped in like a little bit of fake noise to kind of enhance the 4-cylinder a little bit, but I don't feel like the engine is being too obtrusive to the driving experience. It's also a really seamless transition of power when you go from electric to the gas motor. You don't get this sort of blah, blah feeling when the engine just kind of kicks on, which I really like that as well. So let me go ahead and take it out of sport and into hybrid. This is the mode where I can kind of use both depending on how I position the throttle. So I'm in hybrid mode. I just need a quick burst of acceleration. Something that I will say, in hybrid mode, it is going to be a lot more eager to kick on the engine, but it waits a little bit. And honestly, I've driven this car around in electric mode for quite a while, and it feels quick enough to me. I mean, listen, you're not going to win any drag races in electric mode, but it can get up to speed. Like, you can merge into traffic, you can pass slower traffic, no problem, just using the electric motor. And I should just talk a little bit about the actual GLE part of this whole equation. The GLE is an SUV that I have always liked. We've got very nice, but pretty light steering here. I think the BMW X5 is maybe a little tighter in the steering category, but the ride comfort is what I really love. We're going over some bumps now. This one has the base wheels, 19-inchers, and you've got this big, thick sidewall tire around it. So you just have this super cushy, marshmallowy ride. There's nothing sporty about it. I'm assuming that if I went for like the giant 21s and the AMG suspension and all that stuff, that it might create kind of like a sharper experience here. But this thing is just kind of floppy to the side. It's real spongy on the brakes, spongy on the tires. It almost feels like a mid-2000s or 90s SUV in a good way. It doesn't have kind of that firm, overly sporty ride that a lot of SUVs, especially the luxury ones from Germany that I drive recently, have. And honestly, it's just really refreshing that Mercedes just built a car that is just so dedicated to comfort. I just drove an S-Class recently that had the AMG pack with the big wheels, no sidewall, and it had good suspension, but like, it was really tough to overcome those big wheels. So having just these small wheels and this nice sidewall is just so refreshing, and I really love it. And now I think it's time to talk about the EV range while I'm driving around in EV only range. I have just over a quarter of my battery left, and it is still showing me 17 miles, which is pretty nice considering that a lot of other plug-in hybrids on the market right now will barely do 18 or 20 miles on a completely full charge. This GLE 450e has a massive battery pack. It's 31.2 kilowatt hours. Just to put that in perspective, the first generation Nissan Leaf, which didn't have a gasoline engine, had a smaller battery than that. So this is a very big battery for a PHEV, and it really yields a good range. The EPA rates this at 48 miles, but I can go ahead and tell you that I think you're gonna get more than that. I've driven about 35 miles and I have not stopped to charge yet, and it's still showing me about 17 miles left. In fact, when I had this fully charged, it was showing me closer to 60 miles on a full charge. So that is a really usable amount of battery, because what you could do is, if you worked 15 or even 20 miles away, you could drive all the way to work, and even if your work doesn't have chargers, you could drive all the way back and then charge up overnight, and you wouldn't have to fire up your gasoline engine at all. This is a PHEV that I could really see working with people's day-to-day lives. And the interesting part is that it might actually work on a road trip too. See, that's an area where I think PHEVs don't really work. They work really good from A to B back to A. They don't really work from A to B to C to D to E back to A, because even if you have 50 miles or 60 miles like you do on this GLE, that's not really going to get you very far if you're going somewhere that's 200 miles away. You're going to burn through that EV range pretty quick. But this actually has DC fast charging. So if you're out and about and you happen to be at a CCS-enabled charger, you can charge this thing at up to 60 kilowatt speeds. That could get you from like 10% to 80% battery in like 20 minutes. So if you're somewhere where the charger has like groceries or good shopping or whatever, you can shop for 20 to 30 minutes and come out to a full PHEV battery and keep driving around on electric range. That is kind of a game changer. I don't know how many people are going to take advantage of the DC charging, but I could see that being a really useful feature. Now, in terms of level 2 charging, this thing is still really quick. On an AC plug, it can get up to 11 kilowatts, which is still really good. That 10 to 80% might take about almost 3 hours to recharge up, maybe a little longer to get that final 20%. On a level 1, you're looking at more than 24 hours because this battery is so big. So if you buy this car, you're really going to want to have a level 2 installed in your house, I think. And when you run out of your electric range, this is an area where PHEVs kind of struggle because they're carrying around this big battery and now they're just, using their engine, and they have this massive amount of weight saddling them down. You're gonna only get 24 mpg out of the GLE, which is not great for a 4-cylinder, but I guess, it's a big, heavy car after all. But really, the GLE 450e is best enjoyed if you're going to plug it in a lot. So now let's pull over and check out the interior of the facelifted 2024 Mercedes GLE. And I don't want to spend too much time in here because honestly, it doesn't feel like Mercedes spent too much time in here redesigning things. We do have an upgraded leather package on this car. These seats are very comfortable. They are heated and ventilated. I'm not much of a fan of this particular leather color, to be honest, but the heated and ventilated seats are nice. We do have our Burmester upgraded audio system as well. You go ahead and shut the door. We do have soft closed doors available on the GLE. I'm going to go ahead and start it up. We do have dual 12.3-inch screens, so you have your main MBUX screen. You can talk to it by saying, "Hey Mercedes." You can do wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. So we do have really nice tech. Nothing really groundbreaking in terms of Mercedes tech here. It's all stuff that we have seen before. We've got our gauges here, rather simple. It's really funny. You have your tachometer kind of showing all the time, even though you can be running in electric mode for a lot of it. You don't have to have that though. There are other gauges where you don't really have a tachometer. The sport one actually kind of makes a lot of sense here, or you can just go for the understated where you don't have a tachometer at all. You could also have this be a full color map, which is kind of nice as well. So I do really like the technology in here. We do have a slightly different steering wheel than we got. This is similar to what you'll find in other Mercedes models where you have these swipe pads. This one kind of controls what's here in the middle of these gauges. This one is to actually control this main screen. So if you don't want to be touching it, you don't have to. We do have a wireless charging pad here. Not the best integration there because your cup holders are going to be blocking it. We do have heated and cooled cup holders here, just like BMW has, although you can't control them individually. You can only control both. So one person can't have a hot drink and one person can't have a cold drink, which is a little disappointing. And we do have this little track pad here. So again, if you don't want to use the touch screen, Mercedes just gives you so many different ways to control its infotainment system, and I do really like that. As for the rest of the interior, it does feel very premium in here. Nice leather materials. I love this kind of wood with the lines in it. That is an optional extra. There are one or two areas where this interior does feel a little bit cheap, but they are few and far between. Things get a little interesting here at the back, depending on how you option up your Mercedes GLE. We've got almost 41 inches of legroom back here, which is really outstanding. It's better than the BMW X5. So this is just an area where the GLE really shines. We have an optional package that's going to give us these power adjustments here on the doors. So as you can see, I can kind of lean these seats forward. I can slide the whole base of the seat as well. You can see this thing gets really far up, and then I can go ahead and put it back. So it goes really far back, so you can really change the adjustability. Maybe you have a car seat in there and you don't need all of the leg room. You can go ahead and slide it all the way up to give yourself more trunk space, which is something that's really nice. But something that is kind of interesting back here, we do have air vents, but we don't have any way to control them. You can have that optionally, but this one is not equipped with it. We do have some USB-C ports down here, and we do have a simple armrest with our cup holders, but no heated seats, no ventilated seats. You can get heated seats as part of the package, but it is rather interesting that this GLE doesn't have it. And something that else that kind of interests me is that you can get a GLE with a third row seat. So you get these little switches here on the top. If I go ahead and push that, the seats will kind of lean forward as if to usher you into the third row. But because there's a battery back here, you actually can't get a third row on the GLE Hybrid. You'd think that they would maybe just delete this button, but nope, they left it in for some reason. And the last thing we're going to look at on the interior is the trunk space, where the GLE is really good and the hybrid really doesn't make too many compromises over a standard GLE. We've got 31.5 cubic feet of storage space back here with the second row up. That is negligibly different from a regular GLE, which has about 33 cubic feet of space with the seats up. So you're not going to miss 2 cubic feet, not really anyway. And because we have those power seats, I can go ahead and push these 2 buttons and it will move all of the seats out of the way to make sure that those seats can go ahead and fold down flat, opening up about 75 cubic feet of storage, which is, again, really nice. The only thing is, if you're bringing your charging cable back here, you know, this is going to take up some trunk space. There's no frunk or anything, obviously, to put this in. But what we do have is, because these seats are powered, you can go ahead and push this button and go ahead and lift them back up without lifting a finger, which is kind of nice. And the really nice thing is that if you don't like kind of how slow that was, and honestly, I don't think it was that slow, there are some red tabs up there that you can pull to manually lower these seats if you just need quick folding access. So it is kind of nice that Mercedes just puts backups for everything in its cars. I really like that. So last but not least, let's go ahead and take a quick walk around of this updated GLE for 2024. We have a grille design that I believe is unique to the plug-in hybrid. It can be switched out if you get the AMG line package, if you want something a little sportier and a little classier. This is kind of just like a simple grille in my mind. The headlights really haven't changed much in shape, honestly. Mercedes really kept this facelift very subtle. We do have a little bit more chrome elements here at the front end if you don't get the AMG Night package. We do have very small wheels, as I mentioned on our drive, just 19 inches, and they do look kind of hilariously small on this very large GLE. And look at all that sidewall that you get on there. It just gives that nice cushy ride. We do have unpainted plastic around the wheel arches here, although I believe as part of a package you can go ahead and get that painted. I always have loved the way this kind of metal side step looks here on the side, and Mercedes has carried over this kind of sharp back window here from the ML. It's just always been a staple of this mid-size model. And then back here, I really don't see too many differences between this and the pre-facelift model. If you liked that model, you're gonna like how this one looks. So that was the 2024 Mercedes GLE 450e. Now, interestingly, Mercedes has positioned this right on par with the 6-cylinder 450 model at $69,500. So you're basically, for the exact same price, choosing whether you want a 4-cylinder hybrid or an inline 6 with a turbo. And this one is actually a little bit more powerful, but as I said, it's not really made for performance. It is made for fuel economy and electric driving. Now, I really love the plug-in hybrid drivetrain here. I love that it has a usable amount of electric range, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid. Now, that has an inline 6 under the hood plus an electric motor, so it has about 100 horsepower more than this car, and it's about a second quicker from 0 to 60, actually about 1.2 seconds quicker, and it's only a little bit more expensive. This starts at $69,500, the BMW is about $72,500, and when you put options on that, this GLE 450e is about 86 grand. That really is within the margin of error with the BMW. You could really make one more expensive than the other and it really wouldn't matter. So I'm really curious to go ahead and drive that BMW X5 to see if it's better. It offers about a 40-mile electric driving range. It doesn't have the DC fast charging that this Mercedes does. Whether or not you would use that, that's probably up to you, but I think you should definitely consider both if you're looking at luxurious plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It really helps us get videos like this out to you. And if you want to read more about the GLE plug-in hybrid, be sure to go ahead and read my review over at carbuzz.com. I'll see you next time.